sit at their desks. And here's my problem with Republicans, and you've probably heard this before. Chris, you had that gentleman from the progressive, whatever he was, on Fox News, and you heard him just basically rip into the Phil Krinke, who's a great guy, I know Phil. But as usual, Phil basically was playing Marcus of Queensberry rules in a Chicago street fight. Will the Republicans, both here in the state of Minnesota and in the Congress, will they actually fight for things like tax cuts? All we're doing right now is maintaining taxes as they were. We have an 8% top rate in Minnesota. That's an obscenity. When is somebody going to come out and say, we're going to cut the state income tax in half to say 4%, and fight for it, and not listen to the rhetoric about, oh, you want to give it to the rich. Defend the rich.
You're starving children.
Yeah, no. The only Republican on the national scene that I see talking the kind of language that we need to hear is Chris Christie. Right? Yeah. I mean, he's the only one that will deal with the teachers' unions, right? And say it clearly. Too often Republicans think, well, we have to go more to the left. No, don't change your position, change your tactics. And I just wondered if you think, is this the time that that's going to happen? Or are they going to start, once they sit down and smell the air of D.C. or the air of St. Paul, well, John, we just, we got to get along.
Yeah.
And what do you think?
From my own perspective, it goes back to what we talked about earlier in the roundtable, is that the electorate is way more informed now than ever before. They're way more passionate, and their patience is very, very thin. And I think that the people elected to public office that don't realize that and operate from that perspective, it's like Tom said, don't act like you're going to keep that seat forever. Act like you've got it for 2 years and you're going to do everything you can. I just think that the mood is different. One of the things locally that's been discussed a lot is a new Viking stadium. And, Big Ron was brought up the fact that no one has ever lost their seat because they helped build a publicly financed stadium, if you look around. And I think that maybe in the past that's true. I don't think that it's true now. I think that, when it comes to something like a stadium, people aren't going to forget that. So to do something like that, you're going to have to lead. I've said this numerous times as a commentator, is that Republicans are great managers and terrible marketers. Yeah. What I've noticed over, let's just take a look at the Bush administration. Even though he was the co-president of Mexico, Jorge Bush, he did a lot of great things. He just never told anybody what he was doing. Yep. And meanwhile, his opponents owned the day. They controlled the message. They controlled the debate. The Republicans have for some reason allowed others who don't believe in their principles to define them. And that's why I say they're tremendous marketers, are tremendous managers, terrible marketers. The other side of the coin is the left, the Democrats, they're terrible managers, but they're really good marketers. They tell you not what they're doing, they always tell you their intentions. Yeah. We intend to do this, we intend to do that. And then when we do that, everything's going to be rosy and beautiful. The Republicans and conservatives are more results-oriented, and they, I think, have historically made a mistake of not celebrating their victories, you see. Because I think that as good managers, and being results, first of all, as conservatives, we think and we operate as individuals. We don't operate from a group think perspective. The left is all about group this, everything's group, especially, one of my big pet peeves is the way that Democrats treat minorities. They're always happy with them around election time, but but they have a very low glass ceiling for minorities in their party. I mean, look at Keith Ellison. He and I had this discussion recently. I asked him, why don't they elevate you in your party? Because at least you can deliver your message. I mean, I don't agree with that guy on just about anything, but he owns who he is. So now he is the leader of the Progressive Caucus, but he has to share that role, you see. You take a look at Nancy Pelosi. She is the House Majority Leader. Now she's going to be the Minority Leader. Many people said, well, she's going to step down. James Clyburn wanted to take a leadership post. Well, they wouldn't let him have it. they continually exploit these people, but they tell them, they market, we're here for you, we're helping you, we're here for you. Republicans on the other side, they just manage, and as individuals who measure their own achievements based on results, just think that, well, everybody sees what we're doing. You know, if more people have jobs, then I think that their perspective is that, hey, everybody's got jobs, we're the guys in charge, our policies are working, people should recognize that, but that's not how it works. You have to market. A great example, you still see ads for Colgate toothpaste, okay? You still see ads for Folgers coffee. You know, everybody knows Folgers coffee, everybody knows Colgate toothpaste, yet they're pounding you with advertising. They continue to market, and Republicans and conservatives truly need to, in my opinion, spend an enormous amount of time educating people about what it is they're doing and how their policies are affecting them. Sorry I'm long-winded. I'm very passionate.
Well, and I agree. I would add a little bit to it. Not much. I would just say that this is something that I think Jackie and I are very proud of. And somebody within the Republican Party, not leadership, but somebody who's a longtime Republican in this state, contacted me right after the election and said, you should be proud of one thing first and foremost. You said you were going to run on principles of smaller government, on individual liberty and economic freedom. And he said, you never went off of it. Where it historically, because Republicans not only are bad marketers, but they got, you know, it's that Gary Gaetti line, it's awful hard to play third base with both hands placed firmly around your throat, right? It's the same concept. They're so worried about the outcome of the election, they think, because they start listening to all these voices that say, oh, well, if you're two here and you're two there, you got to move over here. That's garbage. Mm-hmm. The thing that's happening in this state and in this country that you see, and let's look back. I firmly believe we were going to win the election. We did not. My hat's off to Governor-elect Dayton, and he's going to have his opportunity to govern. But think about this. We went out and we talked about these issues on a regular basis, and people that even disagree with us, because this is what people want. The politicians historically tell you what you want to hear, because the idea is to gain your support, and gain your vote, and gain the office, which then they work very hard to keep because that's their career. There's a new breed that's coming, and Chris Christie is an example of that breed, and I hope we've shown it a little bit here in Minnesota, and that is stand on who you are. Tell people who you are and what you believe, and guess what? Dare them to disagree with you. And it didn't work for me this time, Chris. I came within just a hair of being the governor of the state of Minnesota based on telling people who we are and what we believe, and taking the risk that, you know what, not everybody's going to like that. Well, you should see the response I'm getting now. And it's not just because of the way we've handled it. It's because people are now sitting back looking and saying, you know, I got an apology email from somebody who said, I really shouldn't have been voting based on party persuasion. And I just want to tell you that I appreciate the way you've handled yourself throughout this, and in the future, I'm going to start looking at the message more than I'm going to look at the party persuasion. And I think that's what we see coming. That's why the sophistication is so important, because you go back 20, 30, 40 years, Republican, Democrat means something to somebody, right? And they come back, they say something, you vote based on what it's supposed to mean, but you have no idea if they're actually honoring those principles. Today you know. Today you know, because you got the internet. You've got all kinds of different things that instantaneously tell you if your beloved senator or your representative is actually honoring the principles that they said they were going to honor.
Right, yeah, you can check their vote record.
Right.
Now, by the way, that email, did you write that guy back and say, oh, thanks for nothing?
No.